simple review of order of operations in class on, or in our face-to-face time on Tuesday. So let's take a few minutes to do a negative and positive review, and then you're going to have one more video to watch this week. But let's work through some negatives and positives to see how much you remember. Let's start by talking about adding signed numbers. Now, this lesson introduces, and I don't like it, but it's the way every textbook starts with positive and negative numbers. We understood if I write this number that it means positive. If we don't say a sign before a number, it is understood to be positive. If I need 5 bananas and I go to Walmart, I don't stand there and count +1, +2, +3. I understand when I say 1, 2, 3, they're positive numbers. But every textbook, when it introduces positives and negatives, writes the plus sign in front of it. And in order to not get confused, they're going to put parentheses around it to keep it together. So we're going to start our math problems with negatives and positives with our positives written this way most often. Okay, so just wanted to give you guys that little bit of a precursor before we jump into this. Here's the first rule. If you are adding numbers that have the same sign, so they're either both positive or both negative, you add and keep the sign that's there. So let's say that we have, I'm going to write it just like your textbook does, +3 plus +5. 3 plus 5, we're adding. They're both positive, so we just add and keep the sign. 3 plus 5 is 8. Now let's say we were adding -3 plus -5. Number 1, we're adding. Number 2, they're both negatives, so they're the same sign. So we're going to add 3 plus 5 and keep the sign. They're both negative, so it's -8. Okay? So if you're adding the same sign, they're both positive or they're both negative, you add and keep the sign. I believe I'm going to have to erase, let me erase these things off of here so I have space for this one. Now, if you are subtracting, that's not at all the right thing. If you are adding different signs, so let's say I have +3 plus -5. I'm adding, they're different signs, then I subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2, and I keep the sign from the bigger number. 5 is bigger, so the answer is negative. Different signs, you're going to subtract and keep the sign from the bigger number. So let's say we have 7 plus -3. I'm adding, oh, your textbook will have it like this, sorry. I'm adding, but there are different signs. There's a positive and a negative, so I'm going to subtract 7 minus 3, keep the sign from the bigger number. 7 is bigger, it's positive, so the answer is +4. If you would like to write the plus sign in front, you can, or you can just write it like this. Let's walk through a couple more examples just to sort of get a little bit more of this under our belt. So let's say I have -6 plus -3, then let's do positive 21 plus -7. Okay? So the first one, -6 plus -3. They are the same sign. They're both negatives. So what do we do if it's the same sign? We add. 6 plus 3 is 9. And we keep the sign. They are both negative. So the answer is -9. The second one is 21 plus -7. They are different signs. We have a positive and a negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract. 21 minus 7 is 14. And we're going to keep the sign from the bigger number. So it's positive 14. Let's talk now about subtracting signed numbers. If you are subtracting, here's the rules. Minus a positive equals a minus. So let me kind of explain this. So I have positive 3 minus positive 2. Minus a positive becomes a minus. So what this problem actually says is 3 minus 2. Minus a positive is a minus, and 3 minus 2 is simply 1. Minus a negative becomes a plus. And I know that's not really correct grammar. We should say minus a negative becomes addition, but I've learned in teaching that it's easier for you to remember minus a negative is a plus. So if I have negative 3 minus negative 2, box this in, minus a negative becomes a plus. So this translates to negative 3 plus 2. Now I go back to my negative and positive rules. Different signs. I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. Keep the sign from the bigger number. Let's do a couple more with a minus sign in there. Let's do 12 minus positive 12. And let's do 17 minus negative 3. All right, I'm sorry, I'll do it just like your textbook does, which is annoying, but that's okay. So positive 12 minus a positive becomes a minus. So 12 minus 12. And because we're in junior high, hopefully we already know 12 minus 12 is 0. Okay? The next problem, 17 minus negative 3. Minus a negative becomes a plus. So now I just add 17 plus 3 is 20. Here's what I want you guys to do, and I'm not there, so I'm just trusting you to be honest and to be wise and to make the right choice. Even though I'm not there with you, what I want you to do is I want you to work these 8 practice problems. If we were in class face-to-face, and a lot of you have had me before, so you know this is what we would do. I would put these problems on the board, I would give you guys a few minutes to work them, and then we would check them. So I want you to work all 8 of these. And then come back and we're going to walk through them one at a time. So pause this video, we'll get a piece of paper out if you don't have a piece of paper and a pencil, work these 8 practice problems, and then come back to the video, press play again, and check your work to see how you do. Number 1, I hope I typed these all in correctly. Number 2, you all have already done these problems like you were asked to do, correct? If you have not tried these on your own, do them before we walk through them together. Okay, we're going to do these one at a time. Positive 9 plus positive 5. We're adding. They're the same signs. So we simply need to do 9 plus 5, which is 14. And we keep the sign, they're both positive, so the answer is positive 14. You do not have to write the plus sign. It's understood to be there, but it's fine if you do. Next problem, positive 9 plus negative 5. Number 1, we're adding. We're adding different signs. And if we're adding different signs, the rule is we subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. And we keep the sign from the bigger number. 9 is the bigger number and it's positive, so the answer is positive 4. The third one says negative 9 plus positive 5. We're adding different signs, so we're going to subtract. 9 minus 5 is still 4. But this time the 9 is a negative, so the answer is negative 4. The next one says negative 9 plus negative 5. We're adding. They're both negative, so we're adding the same sign, which means we add 9 plus 5 is 14. and we keep the sign. Well, they're both negative, so the answer is negative 14. The next one says negative 9 minus negative 5. And if we remember, minus a negative means plus. So 9 plus 5, and that's just a basic math problem, which is 14. The next one says negative 9 minus negative 5. Minus a negative becomes a 5. So we have negative 9 plus 5. I'm adding. They're technically different signs. So we subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. Then 9 is the bigger number, so the answer is negative 4. The next one says positive 9 minus positive 5. Minus a plus becomes minus. So technically what I have here is 9 minus 5. 9 minus 5, which is just 4. Okay? The last one that I have on this page is negative 9 minus positive 5. Again, minus a positive becomes a minus. Negative 9 minus 5, they're both negatives, so I'm going to add. Keep the sign. Hopefully this is mostly review. The last problem we're going to do on the next slide, or on the next section. I had to do it on a separate slide. Give me 1 sec to get that up. And apparently I didn't type that onto this slide, so let me just write it down on here. We have 4 plus negative 3 plus 7 minus negative 2. Now when you have multiple pieces like this to do, what you're going to do is we're going to just take 2 at a time. So it is 4 plus negative 3. We're adding different signs, so we subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. Keep the sign from the bigger number. Now, I have not touched any of this, so we're going to just rewrite that. Now we're going to do the next 2 pieces. 1 plus 7 is 8. I haven't touched this, so I'm going to carry it down. Now what do I know minus a negative to become? I'm going to scoot this over so I can fit all of this on here. Minus a negative is a plus, so it becomes 8. Whoops, that's not a 4. 8 plus 2. And we know 8 plus 2 to be 10. Hopefully you've done a lot of this, well maybe not a lot of this, but hopefully you've done enough of this to be semi-comfortable with this. You're going to do negatives and positives a whole lot. And we're going to go on now to multiplying and dividing, which is easier. Multiplying and dividing signed numbers, they have the same rules, whether you're multiplying or dividing, and these are much easier. If you have the same sign, it's a positive answer. If you have a different sign, it's a negative answer. So let's say that I have 3 times 2, and they're both positive. The answer is simply 6. Let's say I have negative 3 times negative 2. I'm going to multiply as usual. 3 times 2 is 6. Double negatives becomes a positive. Same sign, you have a positive answer. Now, if you have different signs, then the answer is negative. Negative 3 times positive 2 is negative 6. Positive 3 times a negative 2 is negative 6. Same sign, positive number. Different sign, negative number. Let's do a couple here. Let's say we have 16 times negative 3, negative 9 times negative 2, negative 6 times negative positive 2, and then 3 times 5. All right, don't know what that is. Let me fix that. 16 times negative 3. The rules don't change. We just simply multiply. 16 times 3, which is 48. Different signs, the answer is negative. do negative 9 times negative 2. Multiply as usual. 9 times 2 is 18. 2 negatives equals a positive. Negative 6 times positive 2. Multiply as usual. 6 times 2 is 12. Different signs. My answer is negative. 3 times 5 is just 15, and they're both positive, so they're the same sign, so the answer is positive. Same thing as the last practice problems. I would like for you guys to work through these 8 on your own and then come back and check them. So press pause, press pause while you work these 8 problems, and then come back and check them to see how you did. Okay, you've all worked these on your own. Let's come back and work through them and just check your work. Your textbook uses an X right now on this to show multiplication. The reality is, from now on, mostly there's not going to be an X. They're going to look more like this. It's a terrible arrow. Most of them are just going to be parentheses. And here's the rule. 2 things side by side with no sign means multiply. 2 things side by side with no sign means multiply. You're going to hear me say that over and over and over and over. Positive 9 times positive 5. We are going to just multiply as usual. Don't worry about changing rules. 9 times 5 is 45. And they are both positive, so the answer is positive 45. And I'm going to write that there, but you don't have to because it's understood. The next one is 9 times negative 5. We multiply just like we normally do, 9 times 5. Now we have one positive and one negative, which means the answer is negative 45. The next one is negative 9 times positive 5. Multiply as usual, 9 times 5. You have one negative, so the answer is negative 45. Your last one on this side is negative 9 times negative 5. Multiply as usual. 2 negatives equals well, that's a terrible positive. 2 negatives equals a positive. Now, when we have multiple pieces, we're going to do the same thing we did in the addition one. We're going to take a piece at a time. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. 3 times 5 is 5. 1 negative equals a negative. Now I'm going to multiply that answer times the other part of that problem. Negative 15 times negative 2. 15 times 2 is 30, and a negative in multiplication equals a positive. Same thing. There's 3 pieces. We're going to take it 2 at a time. 3 times 5 is 15. We haven't used that times 2, so bring it down. Now 15 times 2 is also positive 30. Negative 3 times negative 5. 3 times 5 is 15. And a negative times a negative equals a positive. Bring down that negative 2 because we haven't touched it. 15 times negative 2 is going to be negative 30. 3 times 5 is positive 15 times negative 2, again, is negative 30. And there's one more thing I want to point out before I sign your homework. And I said this just a second ago, but here's what I see happen a lot. When I get right here, people are like, well, do I add or multiply? What do I do now? What do I do with these 2 numbers? And here's what you need to remember. There is no sign. Bring it down. There's no sign. 2 things side by side means multiply. A lot of times people get here and they do 15 minus 2 because that's kind of what it looks like. But because there's parentheses, you have to look between the 2 things. 15, no sign, negative 2. 2 things side by side means multiply. All right, in order to save myself time, since this is a review for both levels, I really wanted to start negatives and positives at the very basic foundational part for you guys because negatives and positives are kind of tricky. It's the #1 mistake made in mathematics. So, to save myself time, I did both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 in one review lesson. So Algebra 1, remember you're the purple book, even though it says pre-algebra, we're going to be working mostly on this back half of that. So I want you to do page 13, number 3, and it says all 4 boxes because you'll see when you get there. Don't worry about, if you can even see, don't worry about this top part. Just start down here at number 3. Okay? Ooh, that way. Number 3, start there for Algebra 1. Algebra 2, remember you are using the Algebra 1 book because of the level of content in here. You're going to do page 4, page 4, number 3. Don't worry about the top of the page, number 2, and don't worry about the bottom of the page. Only worry about number 3, okay? If you would like to text me your work for me to check to make sure you're doing them right, you're more than welcome to. Remember, hopefully I gave you guys my phone number, but I may not have. So let me get my pen up and running, and I will put my phone number on here just in case I didn't give it to you in class, or if I can get it up and running, sorry. Okay, here is my cell phone number. Text me if you would like me to check your negative and positive work. And remember what I told you, 537-1026. It may take me a while to text you back. My phone is not typically glued to my face and my hands, so I'm very busy. But if you want me to check your work, shoot me a text of your answers. When I have a second, I'll check them, and then I'll kind of let you know how you're doing. All right, you guys are going to have one more video this week that I will upload in a bit.